Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday afternoon Meet the Atheists segment. Gives me great pleasure to introduce to you. How does one say your name? Xandrieth.
Yes, the the pronunciation is correct. This is a bit surprising. Like, it's a funny thing, not related to this at all. But I found that Western audiences pronounce my username much better than my real friends and all. While my legal name, which is Aditya, pronunciation comes out very different from the West. I just find it funny. Nothing else but that.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I'm so happy to meet atheists from all over the world. We are told here in South Africa that all atheists are old white men. So I decided, let's see, let's test this hypothesis. Let's test it and see. And I have found women and atheists from every single country, every single flavor that you can think of. So yeah, it's very, very good to meet you. Let's jump straight into it, and tell us a little bit about your religious background. Where did you grow up in a religion? Was there a lot of religion in the area where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up in a Hindu family, and
Hmm.
Hinduism is the majority religion in India where I live, along with the place I come from, which is Bengal within India.
Uh-huh.
Um, my family is religious, but luckily they are not the extremist version we think when I think about when we say religious people, forcing people into stuff like that.
They're
So
not
they are
Hindu
devoted, but they are not that orthodox. Like from in religious spectrum, they are towards the open-minded people, but they are themselves quite religious and devoted. Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
probably one of the only one, two, or three people who are atheists in the entire extended family. So,
Okay, yeah. And is it
uh,
is atheism very common in India, or is it something that's very rare?
it's not common at all. There are two funny things about it. First, it's not common in the straightforward way, and the other thing is the label atheism doesn't have enough understanding from the common people in India.
Right,
Like
right.
unlike in the Western countries where people understand what atheism means. Like if you tell someone you are an atheist, whether they like it or not, they will at least understand what you mean by that. But if you
Yeah.
tell that to an average Indian, half of them will just be confused about what you're talking about. So that's the thing. It might be it's not as less as the statistics show, because
Yeah.
there's a lot much lack of understanding about the terminology, but it's still less. It's less than 5%, I think, if we go over the
Okay.
stats.
That's interesting. And what was the turning point for you? Where did you get to the point where you decided, okay, this is all nonsense? Was it like was it just like an instant, or was it a slow process? A lot of people describe different processes, when it comes to starting to deconvert.
Yeah, it's a mostly it was a gradual process. Like there's not one single incident I can say about. I've always been a curious guy.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, in my
Me too.
childhood, like when I was a toddler in that level, I was quite devoted in the religious thing, because not because I exactly liked it. Noticed that people like me liking it. So that was the motivation about me. And the thing is, I'm really good at having a high tolerance in different things, like in the physical pain and stuff like that. And we know
Yeah,
religious rituals are something that needs a little bit of tolerance in terms of physical acceptance, for example fasting, stuff like that. So small kids usually avoid that, they don't like it or they fail to follow it. I was good at following that, and that made people like me, and that is what something that I liked. But other than that, I started looking into it because as a kid, attention is something people seek as a kid. Like
yeah,
even
yeah,
though I am an introvert, as a kid that attention felt good, attention from parents and stuff, that made
yeah.
me look into stuff. And slowly, out of curiosity, I started finding out contradictions and that stuff that didn't have exact explanation, stuff that even then didn't make sense. So that was a gradual process. Uh,
Yeah.
it's not exactly one particular incident, but my grandmother, the father's side grandmother,
Yeah.
she was very sick, and so back then I was quite religious, like I believed in stuff. So I kind of prayed for her well-being and stuff, and it didn't work. That it's not
Mm.
that that instinct, like that particular incident, turned me into this. That was one of the primary points that made me question the stuff and the validity of this stuff. And the funny thing is, I slowly turned it is when I was in class five. So class five in the Indian education system means I was around somewhere around 9 or 10 years old.
That
So it
young.
was that young, yeah. But I didn't
Yeah.
knew I was an atheist because back then I didn't know about the terms and the things and all,
Mm.
and there was no one around me who was an atheist for them to let me know that okay, maybe you were an atheist or stuff like that. I found that
Yeah.
out much later, maybe around 15 or 16 years. But I realized when I found out about Steve, I realized that I have been an atheist for much longer before. So I would say that I have been an atheist since around 10 years old, but I found out much later that that's what it is.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. And was there a specific person or maybe an organization of people that influenced you in this process, or was it all an inside job?
Uh, the turning and the conversation, that conversion and all, that was completely an inside thing because even now I don't think there's like I'm not aware of any organization that's related to that field in or around where I
Yeah.
now I
Yeah.
know a few through internet, but locally I know none even now. So that was just me being curious and slowly figuring out stuff. Back then, I
Uh,
just didn't know about any organism or even people. Like I late,
yeah.
much later found out that some of the people I looked up to even back then are atheists, but I didn't know back then. So that was how
Yeah.
it was.
And nowadays, are there any organizations or groups or atheist groups that are around where you are?
No, there is not. That's something I am like not I won't say like I'm actively trying to build one because I need to know a few people to start an organization and stuff like that. I cannot do it alone, at least physically. And online, it's a different story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not locally, nothing locally,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can start something as easy as start a Facebook group or something like that, and because trust me, there are atheists all around you. You know, people sometimes just lack that courage to say it out loud. You know, but
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
doubts. You know, everybody's saying like, is this really? I wonder, is this really true? You know. And sometimes all it takes is for one person to be bold, and you can even do it anonymously, like to be bold and to put it out there and just say, here I am, is there anybody else? And you'll be surprised to find lots of people around you, that does, that also share the same kind of doubt and skepticism. Mm.
yeah, that's true. And so that's something I am trying to do. Like as I said, I'm not doing it actively. What I'm trying to do is I'm pretty vocal about it on social media. So
Yeah,
slowly I have come across people who are it is identifies and is. So
yeah,
I'm slowly building up a vocabulary of people who are local, like not
yeah,
just in India, within or at least close to the city where I live. And once I can count a few people locally, then maybe I'll be a little more
yeah,
serious about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Right now, I'm just
Because that,
being
yeah.
vocal about it and connecting to people.
Exactly, because that's the one thing that religion does very, very well, is it
Yeah,
organizes people and it creates a sense of community and a sense of purpose. So that's why I am very big on getting people together, and even if people get together and play games and talk about nonsense, as long as they get together in a sense of community and a sense of shared interest, shared purpose, you'll find that that community grows and people feel that need to belong. And that's the thing that, like I said, religion doesn't have a monopoly on community and building communities of people.
And
Yeah,
even within religion, as far as I have seen, the Abrahamic religions are better at it than the some other form of religions.
yeah,
Because as far as I've seen, they have a concept of spreading the words of the gospels or whatever version of that religion
yeah,
it is. It's not so common in the Asian religions like
right.
Hinduism and others. So it's not that common. I
Mhm.
feel the reason I feel it's coming from is because all the Abrahamic religions, grew up in under some other culture. So it
Yeah,
started small and spreading it was an important part about sustaining the religion. While in the Asian religions, most of them were part of the culture even before identifying as a religion. So there was no competition to compete against and spread. So that's the
yeah,
difference. That difference is evident in modern society
yeah,
because although the Christianity has turned into the largest religion, it still focuses on spreading its messages. While
yeah.
the religions which are now smaller than them still don't do that because it's not part of the religion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, where we are, religion plays a very, very big aspect of everybody's lives. It's like when people are born, it's a big religious thing. When people get married, it's a big religious thing. When people when people die, it's a big religious thing. So it controls a very big aspect. And people cannot think of these life events and various celebrations and festivals during the year. They cannot think of these things in outside of a religious context and celebrating them in a secular context. So that's also a reason why we have to create these atheist communities. Where are people going? What are people going to do? Are they going to spend a specific religious holiday by themselves? Like sitting at home. At least we can get together and do things. Yeah. Mm. And
Yeah.
are you involved in any activism? I know there's a lot of, India especially is the home of. I'm not saying that you are like a Mahatma Gandhi or somebody, but I know that Indians don't sit down when it comes to seeing injustice and that kind of thing. And I mean, activism is not something big like marching in the streets or attacking the big systems. It can be something as small as just being outspoken on social media or having a political interest or something like that. You involved in anything like that?
Yes, I am. Not in a level that I will call myself an activist,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
I don't exactly take part in stuff physically. Uh,
yeah,
I'm all the connected with NGOs and all, but they're not atheist NGOs. They're NGOs for other
yeah,
social issues. That's not the focus
yes,
of those
yes,
NGOs where
yes,
I physically
yes,
participate.
yeah,
And when it comes to atheism and philosophy and stuff like that, it's more limited to the social media perspective. Like
yeah,
I'm very vocal and open about it, even on my personal life outside of social media. But in real life, it's not that big yet because I'm just
yeah,
talking to people, and when the topic comes up, then I express my
yeah,
views and
yeah,
why the reasoning behind that. I don't just go and tell people about it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
but on social media, since I'm speaking to an audience instead of individual people, there
yeah,
I'm a lot more vocal about it. Like not even
exactly.
anonymously. Like I'm completely
Yeah,
public on
yeah,
social media, but that's
yeah.
more towards the activism side.
Yeah, it's funny. I always see that without fail, all atheists are humanists. They are humanists. They care about other people and they care about social justice and this kind of thing. So and inevitably those two things combine. Whenever you're involved in humanist causes, religion also wants to be involved, and then we, it also gives us a very nice opportunity to show, like that atheists are also, involved in humanist causes. Um, But tell us, what are you, what are your what are your passions? What are you passionate about? What do you like to, to think about? A lot of atheists are, passionate about promoting things like critical thinking skills, and what fuels you at the end of the day?
Critical thinking is something you don't exactly need to be passionate about. It's something that's very important for growth in any field. Like it's
Yeah,
more like
yeah,
a
yeah,
skills that should be part of everybody, irrespective of you directly using it or not. So I
yeah,
don't think that means passion. Definitely something I promote and try to practice as much as possible.
yeah, yeah,
And when it comes to passion, like I'm into the creative field a lot. I'm into filmmaking, writing, photography, graphic design. Like for example, I'm professionally a graphic designer, so I'm completely passionate about that. And what happens with the creative field is it's a very good medium for expressing your views as well. Like instead of just telling someone a statement, you can maybe make a poster of it, and that makes it more effective. So that's a very good medium for expressing yourself. That's one of the reasons I'm very passionate about the creative field.
yeah, yeah. Amazing. And
So just one more segment that I'm really passionate about. That's about the sustainable lifestyle.
uh-huh.
That's I feel that's very like important, and it's connected to the critical thinking part because
Yeah,
of course there are people who deny it, but we know there's climate crisis and stuff like that.
yeah,
And I believe small steps we can take is very important because
yeah,
at individual level you might not see as something significant, but
yeah,
when a lot of people individually take that one small step, it becomes a giant leap.
yeah.
That's something very important.
Yeah, it's strange, and it's especially. I mean, I live in a third world country, so we see the signs of this impending climate crisis all around us. Like the weather is getting extreme, and it's crazy how people who have got all these resources available to them, living in first world countries, will be in denial of something like this. I never see. I can never understand that.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't even have to be, very active about stopping the world with it. You just need to
Mhm.
focus on what you can do at an individual level. Like maybe instead of carrying plastic carry bags every day, you can just bring a bag everywhere. That's a very small thing to do that doesn't take a lot of effort or resources to do. It's that small things that even, but people deny to do even that small things. Like that's the level of responsibility people move around with, and it's that mindfulness that's very important to live around.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. Um, we also, on the continent where I live here in Africa, religion has got a very negative impact on people. It's we have got religious leaders who really exploit people like sheep. They treat them like sheep. And I was wondering if you have experience of any negative impact that religion has had on the community where you live or on yourself.
I won't say on myself,
Mhm.
like it's a bit because I'm a bit good about staying up like aloof from this part of society that bothers me. So
Yeah,
religion doesn't have much of an effect on me per se, but
yeah,
it's a huge problem in India as well, especially under the current regime, the
yeah.
current political regime. It has always been a huge issue, but the problem is
This is
rising with every year
the
because
BJP.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They have very radical viewpoint of the majority religion,
nationalist.
and that's a very important tool of them for controlling the masses. And the problem is that they're not at a level that where they're just focusing on a group of people. They're along with that they're instigating people towards hatred towards the other communities, and having pushing the notion that you have to be a Hindu to call yourself an Indian. Stuff like that is
Mm.
very problematic, and situation is worsening
Uh,
every year. Although I personally is not affected by it yet, but the society as a whole in India is a lot.
yeah, it sounds very divisive. Like it's trying to put people against one another. You're either a Hindu or you're this or you're that. Like it divides people instead of unifying them.
Yes, yes. And this polarization is a very, the thing about polarization is it's a very effective tool of controlling people, because if you can make everything about black and white, people don't
Yeah,
stop and think the reasoning behind it. You just see that
yeah,
who it's coming from. It doesn't matter whether it is right or wrong. If it's coming
yeah,
from the party I support, I don't care whether it is right or wrong. I'll go for it. I'll even fight for it. That's the kind of mentality polarization brings on, and is
yeah.
very dumb and problematic. An easy example is, you look at climate crisis. It's not a political issue. It has nothing to do with politics. But look at
Hmm.
how politicians use it. Like there are, it has turned into a political issue, although it's just about science. It has nothing to do with politics.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
people divide about like you are against the nation for like talking about climate crisis and that kind of bullshit mentality. And
yeah.
it deviates people from the problem that climate crisis is real. It doesn't come from
Exactly.
anything. People can just look at evidence. It doesn't matter which political party is for or against it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sitting here. We are humans have got such a volatile, a volatile disposition. Like now you add something like politics on top of that, and you add something like religious, and it's literally like taking a match to a firecracker. Like it's just it's so easy to to set people off. One of our viewers has asked if you can maybe tell us a little bit about the caste system in India.
Yes,
And
I can.
if,
And I recognize that comment. Like, welcome back. Yeah. So the caste system is not exactly Indian thing as a whole, because
yeah,
uh, although Hinduism is the majority religion, when it comes to the modern concept of India, it's really a mix of a lot of communities.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and so the caste system is a Hindu thing.
right,
And it's a social hierarchy based on your birth, sorry, not birth, on your birth, based on the family you were born into.
okay,
And the understanding, there is not no definitive understanding of where the problem started, but the
right,
general acceptance is it started with a system of associating surnames and the segment of society based on the work you are doing. For example,
right,
let's say you are a cobbler, let's
yeah,
say, and so there's a term in Hindi and also Bengali and some other languages called muchi. Muchi is a person who makes shoes and all. Basically, it means cobbler.
right,
So their surnames called muchi. Then suppose you are a fisherman. So the term for fisherman is Majhi in Bengali, and
yeah,
something similar to that in Hindi and other languages, other Indian languages. So there are
yeah,
surnames called Majhi. So it started with that in very past era, but slowly it turned into a system that suppose you were born into a fisherman family, then you cannot go out of that. So that's the rigidity that started from associating people with jobs to the point that if you're born into a job, you have to be within that. So that's why the problem gradually turned into. And in modern society, there are some hierarchy of the caste. So in segregated system, there is Brahmins, there are Kshatriyas, there are
yeah,
Vaishnavas, there are Sudras, and then there are Dalits.
right.
So the Dalits are the people who have it the worst. They, in some form,
The
in some,
untouchables, right?
yeah, they are the untouchables. And in some segments, they are considered part of the caste system, and in some, like part of the Hindu system, and in some segments, they are considered outside of the Hindu system and below it. So there's a complicated ideology with that, which is funny. Yeah, there's no definitive idea of that, unfortunately, because unlike other religions, there is no definitive single book of Hinduism. Generally, it's referred like generally it comes from the Vedas and all. But while, for example, if you're a Christian, then it's the Bible or some version of Bible, depending on which segment of Christianity you belong to. But for Hindus, there's not one single book. And the definitive book when it comes to the caste system is a book called Manusmriti. That's a very problematic book. And that mainly elaborates the modern toxic caste system that we understand when you refer to when you talk about the term caste.
Right.
And so
And tell me, so how does it work? So you are born into a specific caste. Can
yes,
you change your caste?
no, you can't, and that's where the problem. So
So you
for
can't elevate yourself through hard work. It's just like this is your karma, and you have to live in this caste.
yes, yes, yes. And when it comes to karma, that's a system that people used to uh, what should I call it? Like the karma system and the concept of birth and rebirth. The
Yeah.
birth, rebirth, and karma system is common in other dharmic religions as well. The religions which grew out of Hinduism, for example, Buddhism, Jainism, and there are a few other who use this system as well. And people use that as an excuse to explain the caste system. For example, the concept is if you have done some sins, there are concept of pap and punya. Punya is doing something good, collecting positive karma, and pap is doing something wrong, sin, collecting negative karma. So if you live a good life and collect enough positive karma, then you get rebirth into a better position in your next life. So
Right.
that's the excuse people use, that a lower caste person must have done something wrong in their previous life, so they deserve it. And
It sounds like
that's
hard
the
work.
yeah, and in that hierarchy, if you have not committed any sin in your life, then you don't get reborn at all. You go into heaven. That's the birth, rebirth, the death cycle, and the karma system
Yeah.
used by Hinduism and some other religions.
So
And yeah,
even if so, if you're having a very like difficult, hard life, people will blame your karma from a previous life.
yes.
For you.
So in Christianity, in the Abrahamic religion, it's like God is testing you, but
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
Hinduism, it's like God is punishing you for your previous life.
yeah. Okay. Oh, that's very interesting indeed.
Yeah, it's interesting. That I'll give it that. And that's something why I used like studying religious documents and all. It's just interesting, nothing all. I don't intend
Yeah,
to follow them at all, but it's interesting, and it also helps understanding the society because although we are not part of it, religion affects the society at all,
yeah, yeah. But
and
it's a
that's something
completely
we cannot
different
ignore.
mindset, like this kind of concept is very foreign to Western ears.
Yeah,
Like we hear this, and it's completely foreign. But if you are within that culture and that society, this is obviously the norm to you, and you
yes,
and
yeah,
you see it this way. That's actually very interesting indeed.
yeah,
So, when you look back, I always like to think back on my life and say to myself, if I have the knowledge that I have now, if I had it back then, what a difference it would make, But it's like, you can't change the past or anything. But if you can go back to young Xandrieth and say maybe one or two things to him, like just to see if you can help the journey along. What would that advice be?
That's a bit interesting question for me because like I didn't make much of wrong decisions when it comes to the religious side of life. Like I
Yeah,
was quite early on realizing the like folly in it and getting out of it. My advice would be more towards the social and career side of life because that's the segments where I wasn't that good. I made a lot of mistakes because kids are dumb, but
mm,
luckily my religious side was something I like understood the things quite early on.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I have always been a weird guy. Like, of course you won't call me weird because we are just meeting on a conversation, but for people living around me would you know and would call me a little weird, but not in a wrong way. It's not in a way that they're
yeah,
trying to demean me or something. They just understand I'm a bit different.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that has never bothered me. I've rather been pretty like open and proud about it in some way. It just has affected the social life because that's something I haven't been good at. I won't say I'm that good at even now, but back then I sucked even more. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
my advices would be about that, understanding stuff a little better.
Very interesting indeed.
And you mentioned that these concepts of Hinduism and this kind of oh yeah, that I think that's part of it, because what happens in Indian society is not just Indian, in the Eastern society, the society a bit of a conformist. Like
Yeah,
unlike the West, people expect to get not exactly ordered, but people expect to get guidance from the elders and following
yeah,
the elders more closely. It's more of a kind of respect, not fear. And
yeah,
so when in that kind of society, when you question everything and you try to make sense of everything and not just do it because that's the norm, you slowly start getting being an outsider to the society.
yeah,
That's a part of it. So I feel like that's something that I've been part of. uh, that's something I didn't handle that well when I was kid. I'm not saying that it hurt me mentally, like
yeah,
it didn't exactly affect me that bad, but I was confused about it. Like I didn't
yeah.
know how to deal with that when I was a kid because I didn't understand stuff
But
that
yeah,
much.
it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because when you conform to societal norms, it's very comfortable and very safe, and you feel part of the society. But when you are an individualist, it's very I can say it's very alienating, because you're taking on your own position, so you immediately stand away and separate from the crowd. So I can completely understand that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's one of the reason that people, follow religions for that peace of mind that they
yeah,
feel like they're part of something, which is why it slowly turns into an identity thing, not just an opinion.
yeah,
And that's problematic,
yeah,
but I can understand where it's coming from.
yeah,
People have
yeah.
the,
But that's the thing. Hey, the religion becomes an identity. Like you
yeah,
just said. It's not. Yeah, I'm Dean. I'm a human being. It's like people say, yeah, I'm Jack. I'm a Hindu, or I'm Pete. I'm a Muslim. And it's like part. It becomes part of their identity. It's an extension of the person is the religion. I find that very, very fascinating.
yeah, and that's very problematic as well. Like it boxes people into something. It doesn't give the opportunity to grow.
Yeah,
And if you box yourself into a specific brand of anything, you won't grow. And growth is very
yeah,
important. You can just be the same person you have been 10 years back. That's
yeah.
just disappointing.
Amazing. So in conclusion, Xandrieth, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out to you? Maybe you got a Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or something.
Yeah, I am active in most social medias. Like I use the same username everywhere since like I'm assuming this is on YouTube, so YouTube is a good place.
Yeah.
I have a YouTube channel and all. And this one thing I'm curious about. Like you said, you are in Africa.
Mm.
How did you get into Africa? Like when people think about Africa,
I
you are
was
not the
born.
person that comes to mind.
I was born. I was born in Africa. So I live
Sure.
in South Africa, and there was a wave of European colonizers, maybe in the 17th century. There's actually quite a large
Mhm.
Indian community. There's an Indian community in South Africa as well.
Yeah. Like I'm getting what you're referring to. I'm not exactly. In fact, there's a particular nation in Africa that was completely built of European immigrants who came there to in the promise of new land, something like that. I'm not remembering it well, but I feel like
I
I've heard about it somewhere. Uh,
I'm not too sure about that. Like all I know about is um, as far as European settlements go. The I mean, in southern Africa there is a European community. There was one in Mozambique as well. The Portuguese settled in Mozambique as well, and a couple. There's quite a couple of African countries where I'm terrible at history, so I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly when and where, and but
It's not
the
important.
Europeans settled quite a bit of the African continent. So I think it's I'm just aware of my own specific country and environment, but I'm sure that I'm not exactly sure how big the communities are, but it's it's here we are.
I can tell you a little bit about how much I remember about it. Like it started with the apartheid part of like when part of Africa was in the apartheid states and all. In that time, there was a divide between a part of Africa being controlled by completely like
Yeah.
Westerners and part of the local community where as just like India, that colonization problem came and all.
Yeah. So
And
let me fill you in about this. Is after the Dutch came and settled here, the English also came here, and then there was lots of wars between the Dutch and the English, and then eventually like all of that settled down, and then the Dutch and the English started fighting the African community. So it's where there was this big melting pot of people fighting one another, and then eventually what happened is it was in the early part of the 19th century. There was the Dutch identity became they became an offshoot of the Dutch identity and established a new language, which is like a different version of Dutch. And those people called the Afrikaners, they started this whole racial segregation system called apartheid. That was, I was 17 years old when apartheid ended, and I'm like almost 50 now, so it's a long time ago that this went down. I remember growing up as a child, with all these different things, and it was motivated by religion. There was a completely religious element to it. They kept on telling us, this is like, we were promised this land by God, and like it became a religious thing, and they're going to like fight the native, the heathen natives, and all of that. And it's crazy what we were told by the
Christianity has
government.
the concept of the Abrahamic religions have actually all religions has the concept of chosen ones, that the God's
Exactly.
people that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, this is true, Esther. It's a continent that starts from the south, right past the equator, over to the north. It's there's such a varied people across the whole continent, but it's crazy how religion just amplifies these things. I'm speaking about it from my own experience. It's if religion wasn't in the mix, I'm sure that people would have had less reason to to be so cruel and miserable to one another.
The thing with religion is it's a very easy excuse for getting your shit done. When you if you're trying to make people to do something and they ask you questions, and if you answer them that God wanted it, what can they ask to that? Okay, I don't understand God might, like, it's a very easy excuse to get shit done and make people turn against each other and all. You don't need to answer questions. It's a very easy escape. And that's why that's why kings and the strong people, the exploitative people, seem to very religious have a very religious outlook, because it makes them look good in the common man's eyes. Although they
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm always very skeptical, when it's always people that are telling us what God wants. And, it's people have got access to people have got access to this, and I'm just wondering, like, you know, like, why does God only speak to like certain people? You know, it's and never to everybody, you know, and never where two people can hear them. You know, it's the strangest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, like the atheist group that I'm a part of, you know, in India, they've also gone through lots of drama with, you know, like drawing, making these blasphemous cartoons about Shiva and Kalima and all of that, and people were up in arms. You know, they were very upset.
I was following that row, and my favorite was there was a blasphemy art of Ram and Muhammad. That was epic. But then again, I knew that the accounts will be blocked and all because I loved them, but but they were against the community guidelines and all, so it makes
Yeah, yeah,
sense. I feel
yeah,
like they should have kept those parts within their website. That way, the community guidelines wouldn't affect them because
yeah, yeah,
using some platform, the platform has the control of what it wants to
yeah,
allow or not in that
yeah.
platform. That's a question.
But you know, this is the funny thing is like the I heard it said once that you know, the only way that you can exercise your free speech is by expressing it. And some people have to experience free speech like a cockroach experiences gravity when you step on it. You know, it's the same principle. You know, like they will not understand and be okay with free speech unless they experience it firsthand. And it's it's I love that analogy of you know, experiencing free speech like a cockroach experiences gravity when you step on it.
Yes, you don't have to agree with something, but preventing people to asking question is just a sign of misuse of power and showing your own
Exactly.
insecurities and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Which is why that's something that's another problem of the current regime of India, where you I don't know you if you're following it or not, since you don't live.
I know that it's you guys also have do you have a multi-party parliament, or is it single party?
No, it's a multi-party parliament.
Yeah, yeah. No,
But
same here.
yeah, but it depends on how much support the party has. If one single party has the majority support, like the over 50% of the support, then they have quite a lot of bit of power over the opposition. And depending on what the party wants, there is a huge tendency of misusing that, something the current party is doing. So that happens a lot.
Hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, well, you know, I think let's wrap it up there. It's like I said earlier, I'm so happy to meet atheists from all over the world, and you know, if you have anything specifically that you want me, and maybe a link to something that you want me to post in the description, just drop that to me afterwards on Facebook. And yeah, keep fighting the good fight. You know, keep fighting the good fight. Good job. Cheers, man.
Cheers.